And we are live. Hello and welcome, everyone. It's time for another exciting episode of IT Career in Australia channel. And today's topic is top in-demand cybersecurity jobs in Australia. So today we're going to explore cybersecurity jobs in Australia, obviously, focusing on the most in-demand roles and necessary skills. Our speakers going to cover different in-demand job across industry, emerging specialties and some nuances in job market in Australia. So we're going to talk about importance of practical experience, certification, continuous learning. And obviously, if you still stay till the end of the stream, you get some valuable insights into navigating and succeeding in Australia's cybersecurity industry. So make sure have your questions ready so you can pop it in the comments. Obviously, thank you so much for finding some time to joining me this evening. Don't forget to introduce yourself in the comments. Let us know what you do. Are you in the cybersecurity industry yourself? Or you're trying to get into cybersecurity industry? And obviously, join our conversations with your questions and comments. I'm Jana Martins, if you forgot, and I'm passionate about learning more about present and future of the tech industry, and always eager to share my latest findings with you on this channel. Again, topic, top in-demand cybersecurity jobs in Australia. And before I pass it over to our speakers, I'm going to just quickly remind you that we are streaming live on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you missed the stream, no worries, you can always watch the replays by subscribing to my YouTube channel, where I go live every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time with experts from my network talking about various topics on the IT industry in Australia. And if you want to make sure you never miss the next show, join my meetup group to receive some invites. And we also have a face-to-face event in Albert Park in Melbourne as well. So please use this stream as your opportunity to network with people in the industry as well. Ask the questions, and if you stay till the end, you get a nice surprise from our speakers as well. So that's enough of me. As I said, please don't forget to introduce yourselves in the comments. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, sometimes comments delayed, so you can always jump to YouTube link and comment there. Anyway, without further delays, I'm just gonna pass to our speakers to introduce yourselves. We'll start with Chirag. Chirag, please.
Thank you, Anna, and a pleasure being with you today. I appreciate the opportunity, and a big hello to everybody who's tuned into this session. So I'm Chirag Joshi. I've had the good fortune of being in our cybersecurity industry now for multiple years across different countries, different industry verticals. I started my career in more technical roles and then progressively moved into management and leadership roles. Along the journey, I wrote a couple of books in cybersecurity, which, thanks to the support of the community, did quite well. The recent book is called 7 Rules to Become Exceptional at Cybersecurity, and it focuses on the whole idea that cybersecurity exists to enable our human aspirations, our businesses, and it's not just a technical topic. So it's something that I always kind of anchor on in my thinking when it comes to this. I'm also fortunate to be a board director with ISACA Sydney. ISACA is a global association, professional development association, and industry professionals, many different countries. I think it's circa 170 plus countries, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure Kevin can validate exactly that number. But our Sydney chapter is a very thriving chapter, and it's all about bringing members together and contributing to this, not just cybersecurity, but also risk, compliance, audit professionals, and growing our careers there. So that's a bit about me, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit more as we get into the session. So over to you, Jana.
Thank you, Chirag. Kevin, please, over to you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. It's Kevin here. Been in the industry for 25 years now. Started out in education, teaching security, and I'm actually currently the CISO Enrich Data Co, which is a AI risk decisioning, credit risk decisioning platform that we backend for banks. And yeah, so I started in security, and I still am in security all these years.
Perfect. Thank you, Kevin. And Edwin, over to you.
Hey everybody, my name is Edwin Kwan. So just listening to Kevin and Chirag, I'm actually the least experienced. Just got about 10 years experience in security. I started off as a software engineer. So I started in a technical area and kind of moved into application security and kind of move along from there and kind of progressed to doing security advisory and so forth. So that's me.
Thank you, everyone. We have quite a few people joining us. Vikram is here. Thank you for saying hi. Kamal Kanan here. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your names incorrectly. Hello, I'm an accountant and 40 years old. Is it possible to move into Korean cybersecurity? Straight to the questions, you know. Paleo, we'll get back to your question in a second. And we'll definitely talk about it today. But before we dive into, top in-demand jobs, I would love you guys just maybe give a little bit, talk a little bit about your experience and maybe mention to us, what was the turning point and you kind of decide that you want to be in cybersecurity, or maybe something like, I don't know, inspire you. That's it. Like, I'm going to stay in cybersecurity for 25 years. So you went to uni straight away, thinking like cybersecurity is the way forward. Or it was completely, unexpected. So maybe we'll start with Edwin. Edwin, what about you? How that, happened with you?
Yeah, so I started off, as I mentioned, as a software engineer. I've been doing that for over 10 years. And then I joined a financial services organization in Australia. Initially, I joined as a software engineer, but I learned very quickly that they were on a journey to get their full banking license. And as part of that, there were certain requirements they have to, I guess, to meet, and security being one of them. So it was a startup kind of company, and it has the mindset of, we could do everything ourselves. Let's try and work on that. And they, I guess, reached out within the company and say, who is happy to champion that? So that was my opportunity, so to speak. Kind of went into that, started out in the application security space because I guess that's the most natural progression from writing software to making sure that the software is secure. So spend quite a few years in that space, building up the team, building up the capability. I was there doing, I like to think I'm doing DevSecOps when DevSecOps was still not yet a thing, getting that out there. And eventually there was more opportunities coming along. We had the, I guess, CPS 234 from AppSec with different requirements, and there are different areas that needed to be met. What kept me in security all these years, I really like the problem space that we're working with. As a software engineer, I was obviously working on just one feature, one project. My view was quite restricted. I was obviously, very deep in knowledge in that one area, but that was about it. And in the security space, I had the opportunity to just work across the board. And I really like that. I like working with people, talking to different stakeholders and all, and I guess that gave me the opportunity for that. And I like learning too. They say that everything you learn in cyber will be obsolete in 18 months or earlier. And I feel like we're always constantly learning, and I particularly enjoy that. So yeah.
Perfect. Yes. So coming basically from the software engineering background and grabbing the opportunity. Kevin, what about you? What was that moment for you that moving to cybersecurity?
I think it started a very long time ago. So we're talking about the late 90s here. And I am one of those that actually, I was lucky enough to actually find what I like. And back then there wasn't an industry in security to begin with. And if you take it all the way back to when I was growing up, it was about taking things apart, being curious, etc. So being going into tertiary education in the 90s, and then going into actually teaching, it's been really, really interesting to just be focused on one area. In back then, IT was a thing, security wasn't a thing. So being highly specialized back then, I use the air quotes because it's very different these days. However, and then realizing and teaching and being able to then go into actually going into the industry, building things. So, I do have, I did start again from a technical perspective, but I want to make it very obvious it's not always about being technical. But it is, that's where I came from. But these days, it is about the translation and being able to see the bigger picture. So, I guess my span has always been about a personal interest, which is actually the thing that drives my and what drives it is usually my curiosity, and what actually makes it interesting for me. And people do ask me the question, how do you actually keep up with the changes in the industry? It's because this is a personal interest of mine. So when it all sort of intersects with each other, it becomes a little bit easier that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think curiosity. I went to meet up yesterday around product management, and the curiosity thing was coming up in basically every conversation, every question. So people who are curious always find their way, find some new opportunities in the career. So curiosity seems like the one of this main features to progress in your career. Chirag, what about you? Was it a curiosity for you, or it was determined career path?
I think curiosity is absolutely essential, and with that is a growth mindset. And the word growth mindsets, get used a lot, but really it comes down to you pushing yourself out of comfort zones, right? Recognizing that what you know uh, is never enough. There's always something more to know, but also having the discipline to pursue that, to understand how to apply that, because you can read a lot and you can learn a lot, but if you can't apply it, then it's not really helpful, is it? So I think that drive to actually go out and try things, implement things, break things, learn from those mistakes, I think that's key to any growth. So for me, like I mentioned, I started off in more technical roles as well, and it wasn't cybersecurity. Back then it was IT security, devolved information security, so it's gone through all these iterations. So the word cybersecurity is still a very new term, and which is why there is so much ambiguity around what exactly is this industry, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But I'm an engineer by education, so I did my engineering in electronics and telecommunications. I got my master's degree in the US. It was half engineering, half business school. So it was a master's in telecommunications management, and what that did was it gives you an appreciation of the technical bits, but also the business side, right? And that always attracted to me two things: is why do we do security? Why do we do IT? Is to enable a broader purpose. It's not for the sake of itself. And I remember one of my earlier roles in security was doing PCI DSS, which is a payment card industry data security standard. So that's essentially now a very mature standard. But when I started out, it was still in the early stages, and I was doing it for a hotel and restaurant type operations. And then you get to see like the actual impact of your work, when people can't take orders, when they can't make booking reservations, and it inconveniences people. And that goes to show the role that we play in enabling things. So that got me more interested, but I always like the people side of things as well, and to accompany the technical side, which is where then my future career kind of morphed more into, okay, fine, all these technical bits, but how do you enable that across different industries? Financial services, energy, universities, they all have a very different purpose and mission. How do you apply cybersecurity there? How do you talk to people about cybersecurity such that they actually understand what you're saying, and not getting lost in all these technical buzzwords and jargon? So that was a big part of my career journey, and I think that helped me a lot, because being the translator between technical and business is a key skill that I recommend to people, is understand why you're doing something. Even if your role is highly technical, it does contribute to a end of the day a service that is provided by the government, or a business or a product that your company is selling, or the service that you provide, right? So ultimately that connection needs to be made. So that's another thing that I suggest to people, as they think about their careers, is ask that why, even if it's a technical role that you're playing in. But yeah, look, I think that was a big part of my journey, and then being part of, like I've already mentioned, professional associations, I also do a podcast similar to you, Yana. I talk about different aspects of cybersecurity, not just technical. So entrepreneurship, leadership, storytelling, communications. That's a big part of our industry. Is A lot of people now are aware of this, right? 10 years back, there wasn't that much awareness about cybersecurity. Like people who knew, and you were doing programs, but it was still very corporate, very organizational. It wasn't just making newspaper headlines everywhere, Netflix documentaries being made about it. Now it's very mainstream. People are talking about it. People are interested. Everybody kind of knows what dark web is. People generally understand what phishing is. So if you've gone beyond that stage of saying cyber is important, I think the stage now is actually making it more real to people. So that's been a big part of what I try to do with my current work as well.
Makes sense. Thank you, Chirag. So let's, I guess, dive into that main question of today's discussion. What are those basically most top in-demand cybersecurity roles currently in Australia? Yes, so we're trying obviously to talk about Australia as well and see what's happening in the industry here now that hopefully we're maturing and as Chirag said, everyone know at least what the phishing email now. So, but, and also, maybe it will be good to give a bit of a definition of some titles. I know like it's really hard to say like, oh, it just this title is in demand, yeah, or like this exact role is in demand. So it is really hard to pinpoint a particular title, but it would be good, I think, give a bit of a definition of the titles as well, and your thoughts about which ones seems like the most in demand at the moment. And for whoever is listening, if you're curious about if you're confused about any particular title in cybersecurity industry, please put it in the comments so we can try to answer that question as well. Maybe we'll start with Kevin this time, please. Kevin, so what do you think the top in demand jobs right now?
I think the landscape is very much driven by the top end of town at the moment, and the amount of regulation that's actually being applied on financial services, on sort of these critical infrastructure sort of industries, and even within the government itself. It basically ends up being a question of how do you actually define what it is from a regulation perspective you're looking at versus what you need to do, or to meet those particular regulations. So I think it is a spread, but I'll start with the governance, risk, compliance side of things. So the acronym GRC comes up a lot. So GRC analyst, GRC manager. I'll start with that at the moment and go, that's generally where I see a lot of that happening, and mainly because organizations, whether they're mature or not, you do sit there and go, okay, I need to actually meet with this particular regulation. What does that actually mean? And they very quickly they try to jump into that GRC wall as well. And then once you actually figure out what it is that you're actually doing, and it evolves into how do I implement stuff. And that's when your things like your cyber engineers, start jumping in, and we're talking about actual implementation of the controls after it's been defined and designed, etc. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got also the, I guess, you can call them auditors, or you can call them there's security auditors. It's not a typical title you see, but that is the other end of the spectrum. And as Chirag mentioned earlier, PCI DSS, you actually can be qualified to become a certified, because not everyone can actually audit in that space as well. So therefore, there is also that end of the spectrum where you get engaged to come into an organization, either to number one, consult and provide more inputs into an organization, or it could be you're coming in to actually do the assessment for the organization as well. So that's where I see a lot of that focus is at the moment. I'm not excluding everything else, but I think that's where that, and I'll just throw out that, CPS 230 is a big thing for the regulated entities at the moment. And that's where you're going to see a lot of that churn happening.
And Kevin, like you obviously mentioned, like Joshi as a first top of your mind. But just a quick one to become a Joshi manager. Do you need to have any technical background at all, or is it more about actually knowing the boundaries compliance and doing some certification, particularly in this area? And it doesn't matter if you have any technical background.
So I think it's interesting because your three guests here comes from I guess a technical background. I guess my background is into protocols, right? The reality, and this is the reason why I wanted to put a caveat on the word technical here. The answer is no. You don't have to be technical, but you need to understand how it works or how effective it is, that it plays within the whole ecosystem that you're actually dealing with. Now, and this is where the curiosity starts kicking in. If you're curious enough and someone says something, I'm not asking, okay, let's take, for example, something really simple like, endpoint detection. Okay, if you don't know what it is, go find out a little bit more. Oh, all right, okay, what does that actually deal with? I'm not asking you to go out there to implement it or any of that. It's literally have a real good appreciation of what it is out there. There are a lot of controls that will be applied using a technology. So even understanding the vendor landscape, in a generic terms, and understanding how that all pulls together. I think that's as far as you really need to go. Just be curious. Just go. Just understand where it fits in the big picture.
Yeah, makes sense. Edwin, let's go to you. So what do you see in the industry? What first role comes in your mind that you think in like the top in demand cybersecurity role?
So Kevin went to the top, so I'll go right down to the bottom based on my experience of what I've been seeing. So one thing that we've been struggling to hire is actually good application security engineers. And I'll caveat that because there's different names that come in, but they kind of do about the same thing. So some organizations call them DevSecOps engineers. If it's cloud focused, you might call them cloud security engineers. But basically, these are the people who are working with the developers to help them write secure code to secure the application, giving them advice, helping them review their code. So that's where we're seeing not enough talent. We're struggling to find good people in that area. And what makes a good, I'll call it AppSec engineer, just for encompassing all that. So it's someone who's obviously working with the developers, helping them with their code, helping them writing secure code, working with information that's received from other tools about any vulnerabilities, to give advice for how do you fix those vulnerabilities. And where we are seeing that is lacking in that space is there aren't enough people who understand the application enough. So for this one, I would say that technical knowledge is important because you need to be able to work with your stakeholders, which is the development team, kind of say, hey, this is the issue, and actually this is how you can actually address this. I know when I first started, not that long ago, so 10 years, security was already a thing. But at that time, security was a separate thing from software development, where things were developed in isolation. When it was finished, it was packaged up nicely and it was given to the security team to do a test. They do some sort of pen test, a penetration test, where they try to break into the system. And when they find an issue or a vulnerability, they would then write up a report, give it back to the teams and say, hey, there's other issues, basically you need to fix all this. And that was just that whole throwing the report over the fence. You have to address this. And most of the time, the people who are doing the assessments don't actually know the internals for how the system works, or to be able to give advice to say, hey, this is actually how you can fix that. So that's where I feel like we're missing out a little bit with this DevSecOps, where obviously you're putting the sec into Dev and Ops, or the application security engineer, which is, I guess, good engineers coming in, being able to provide the kind of advice, being able to work with the engineers, to work with them to solve the problems together, develop patterns and all to address that. And that comes to my second role that I feel is also in huge demand, which is penetration testers. But I would caveat that by saying, and this is me putting on that AppSec lens, it would be more your white box penetration testers, people who are able to kind of look at your system, not just run some scripts against your application, but to kind of actually look through it, go through the code, and give you actionable advice to how to address those in there. Yeah, so those are the two ones I'll put out there for now.
And just, I guess, briefly, what sort of the career path to those positions? So you feel like it's someone who been a developer before, moving to that DevSecOps role, or is it like testers moving to penetration testing? What would be like the most common career path to those roles, in your opinion?
Yeah, looking back in our team with the application security engineers or the DevSecOps engineers that we have, we've been struggling to hire people directly because they're in high demand, so they get grabbed up very quickly. So we find that most of the people that we have in our team actually come from either a testing background or a software engineering background, just because they know the systems already, they understand that well, and for us, these are the people who are in our security champions program. So security champions program, the way it works is each development team has one or two individuals who are the most security enthusiastic in the group, who are there to put on the security hat while the team is working to build the next feature or the next application, to kind of raise questions about security. They're not the most knowledgeable, but they're the most enthusiastic. And these are the people who actually, after a while, wanted the opportunity to have a secondment into the team or a transition into the team. And these are the people that we find where we're getting our application security engineers.
Yep. Thank you. Makes sense. And let's go to Chirag. So what do you think? Do you agree with Edwin or Kevin, or you have a completely different view on the most in-demand cybersecurity role at the moment?
No, look, I think the important thing to realize, though, is that there are multiple types of cybersecurity roles out there, right? So as opposed to, so obviously, everything Kevin and Edwin have said, I agree. I think it's both the GRC aspects, the AppSec aspect, the penetration testing. So they all are very relevant. Now, the recommendation I always give to people is think about why you want to roll, or what do you want to do with your security career. What specifically can you offer value in? So right now, the thing that I see in the market is the word security architect, right? Like, I mean, that's those words. It's a very common title that people are looking for. People want security architect skills. Now, what they want in a cybersecurity architect role, though, can be very different between organizations, right? So I'll give you a few examples. Sometimes, a security architect can be operating at a level where they see a new solution coming into the environment, potentially a new vendor or a product coming in, and their role is to assess the security of that design, of that vendor, and provide recommendations back such that the risk can be managed appropriately of that, right? So that's typically what's an expectation. Now, how technical you get is very open to organizations and the type of roles. Some roles require to be highly technical because you're an architect and you're focused on a few specific technologies. That could be in the area of network security, could be area of end user computing, or application security. To Edwin's point, you could have an application security architect, and if it's a domain specific architecture role, that requires to be very technically proficient in those areas. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, even if it's not a domain specific role, I really like what Kevin said earlier, is you need to know enough about technology. And look, this is going to be a bit bold or controversial, right? My thoughts on this are that I don't think everybody needs to be super technical to get into cybersecurity. There are roles out there which don't require that. However, for you to be delivering real value to your businesses and actually have a meaningful, purposeful career in cybersecurity, it really helps if you start to learn concepts. Because ultimately, what are you securing, right? Unless you're in awareness and training role, or in a in a very customer facing business type role, largely you are still securing systems, you're securing data, you're securing information or physical assets. That's a big part of the job, and providing recommendations for it. So if you have no foundational understanding of that, it becomes challenging. And which is why, before people just jump into getting certs left and right, I ask them to think about the title, but beyond the title, look at what is involved there, and that would be a starting point. I've seen in my career a lot of great, desktop support people, people who work in IT in different roles, moving into cybersecurity, and they do really well because they understand the concepts. I've also seen people who come from backgrounds like marketing do brilliantly in cybersecurity when they start off in things like awareness and training, right? Where it requires them to influence people, apply marketing principles of getting people to be interested, measuring behavior, and they're really well in those areas. And I'm probably going to jump the gun. Somebody said earlier, accountants. Well, accountants actually do quite well when they have their risk-based thinking and they come into GRC roles. The problem happens when we start to, not put technology at the heart of it. Sometimes you need to kind of do that. And Kevin had the good suggestion of go and be curious, learn things. And I say now technologies are friendlier. We can actually have virtual labs that allow you to, you know, simulate exercises and learn a bit, getting your hands dirty in your free time if you can do that. Because I think that puts you in a really strong stead, not just to get a job. Getting a job is one thing, but actually succeeding in that role meaningfully, and such that your advice is actually practical. Because that's what I'm hearing from a lot of people is a lot of folks start with a very theoretical concept of, oh, this standard says these five things should be done and you're not doing these things, so you're out of compliance. But that's not really the idea. In most practical cases, there are ways to get around that, to inform a risk conversation, and you can't do that effectively if you haven't really embedded yourself into learning some of these things more deeper. So that's a suggestion I would give to people is you don't have to be super technical, but you need to start getting a bit interested into those different areas.
Thank you, Chirag. And we kind of start answering the question, Paleo's questions. I guess maybe let's come back quickly to his comments, and if we have anything else to add. So, Paleo, I'm not sure if it's your real name, but if you have a different name, please put in the comments. So I'm accounted for 40 years. Is it possible to move to cybersecurity career? And also, he's asking, is a high level of education advantage for cybersecurity? I see university offering master degrees in cybersecurity. Is this required? So what advice would you give? Like, I think, Kevin, you mentioned, because you started with Joshi roles. Do you see many, whatever, accountants, for example, moving to those roles? Like, what would be your advice here?
The short answer is yes. It's never too late to actually get into security. For those who actually know me in the industry for a long time, it's like I always say, if you have the interest, I can teach anybody security. That's the way that I look at it. So I would say it's never too late. Now, in terms of universities offering master's degrees, I would say yes, because it gives you structure on how to attain knowledge. But it's not the be all and end all of it. So if you know how to attain knowledge in a structured manner, then you could avoid doing any of these masters. However, if you don't know where to start, I think it makes a lot of sense to actually utilize a structured program like a master's degree to be able to go, okay, you should, this is how it's laid out, etc. Now, but we have to be really careful here and realize that universities is not the limits of your knowledge. Remember, university gives you the structure, and then you actually have to expand beyond that and find out more about what it is all about. And that's the way that I was a lecturer for 5 years. So therefore, that's the constant thing I tell students as well. And I've taught undergrads all the way to postgraduate students as well. And that's definitely the way that I tell them, look, it's structured, it's great, it gives you a way to approach the knowledge, but don't let that be the only time you actually attain knowledge. The structure is there so you can get more knowledge.
And we do have like kind of a few more similar questions, I guess, while we're answering that question. So Vikram is asking, does certification help? And specifically asking if ISC to a good institute to learn cybersecurity. Raymond is asking, which cybersecurity professional certification are considered most useful and credentialable by employers? I guess, Edwin, over to you. Like, what are your thoughts about university certifications? Would you recommend something in particular?
I am gonna agree with Kevin, usually too, that the universities are good for the structure, but they're not a requirement. If you are starting out and wanting to get into security, your biggest challenge is getting noticed by the recruiters to get pre-selected for that interview. So I think that is where the university or the certifications will help you. But the way you learn security, I would come back to what Kevin's saying, is to be curious, is to kind of keep in touch with the latest technology or the latest threats, understand that. And I think that will show during the interview itself. But to get the interview, you probably need the certifications if you don't have the experience behind you already. So the things that was mentioned in there, like the CIS with the ISC square, or even if you network, you go to conferences, you attend CTFs, that's also a way to learn, to get exposure, to get experience. So to summarize on that, it's not a requirement, but it does help with getting your application noticed by recruiters.
Yep, definitely. Chirag, over to you. So what about certification, and what sort of training you providing as well?
Look, so a lot of my training is around helping cyber professionals take the next stage in their career. So, it's around how do you. There are different skills that are required to that, right? From moving from a junior to a mid-level to a senior. At every stage, what got you to that point will not take you to the stage. So a lot of mine, kind of my training is around how do you create good cyber strategies? How do you become an effective cybersecurity professional? How can you talk to boards and executives effectively? Because that all matters as you get into leadership role. It's not just about your technical skills anymore. So I focus on that aspect more so than the technical bits, and that's really my training area. And I encourage anyone to reach out. I'm happy to have a chat if they're interested. Now, I'll take a. So we talked about certifications, right? And while I don't disagree that they are useful, I have a lot of certifications, right? I saw immense value in them in my career because they helped shape the way I thought about cybersecurity. But I'll tell you this: if all I had were certifications and no practical experience, and I didn't really know how to apply them, I'm not sure how much they could have served me, except just being, titles behind my name, right? So that's a challenge. The other thing, though, is there are I like the structure aspect of universities, no doubt. I have a master's degree. I'll never knock down formal education. It's something really important. It teaches you how to approach things in a purposeful, meaningful fashion. However, you got to ask yourself before you invest a lot of money into this, right? And I've seen people spend a lot of money into boot camps, into university degrees, thinking that they're going to get guaranteed a good job in cyber, and it's not always as straightforward. I would rather you do that, but you also start to create some practical projects that you can demonstrate to employers or potential employers that you actually been involved with something, right? So you can have a mix or a hybrid approach of this, where you go out there and you learn, something about cloud technologies. You could do a base level AWS or a Microsoft cloud course, which generally are cheap or free almost. And then you combine that with a good cybersecurity certification, because that demonstrates that you actually are taking it at multiple levels. And good certifications, like, so I mentioned I'm a board director with ISACA. ISACA has some very recognized certifications like CISA, CISM, CRISC. Now, those certifications actually require to have years of experience behind them. So even if you pass the exam, doesn't mean you automatically get to be that. So that in itself is baked into the process, but it's a good thing, right? You don't want to just have them given away without that experience to back it up. But you don't have to start with that. There are other ways you can go about doing it. So I've said in the past, there is a good ISACA certification, CSX foundations, which people can look up, as foundational. There are other associations which do that. Somebody asked about ISC2, again, a reputed organization. The CISSP is a long-standing, well-known certification. So there are lots of them out there, right? SANS Institute provides a lot of technical training certification. So there's no dearth of certifications out there, lots of them. But I would ask, with what is your intention in cyber? I definitely encourage you to have a conversation with practitioners, and which is why, I'm glad to be here on this show, because people need to engage with them before they spend all this money on certs, thinking that that's an easy part of career. Is not. Sadly, entry level jobs into cybersecurity are still not as common. It takes time. And for people moving laterally into cybersecurity, or from a different profession into cybersecurity, sometimes you may need to take a step back before you can jump forward, because you may not get the same salary in the first instance, right? Because you're essentially starting at a more junior role. So all that needs to factor into your calculations. Just getting a master's degree in cybersecurity is not the only way in which you can get a job, because that sadly is a path I've seen some people take, and it is difficult after you spend all that money and you figure out that that wasn't the best decision.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And it kind of already start answering Samit questions. I'm cautious about the time, so we have a few more questions probably to take. Chirag, you already sort of answered that question in a way. What would you recommend individuals who are trying to change career to cybersecurity, and which role is the best to start with? Maybe Kevin, what do you think? What role is the best to start with, where you don't have any experience in cybersecurity?
I'm gonna pick on GRC again, only because it's like and okay, wait. I think the most important thing is not particular role. I think it's important that you do not discount your current role that you're jumping out of, right? And to Chirag's point about being an accountant, that doesn't mean that you can't go into security. You could, but you have a very different angle to it. And if you were an auditor, you can do that. If you're any other, so I've spoken to lawyers, and I go, absolutely, you got to come into cybersecurity, right? So the it is actually the opportunity is rife for you to actually get into cybersecurity, especially with a different sort of angle or different experience you have. And often I do tell people, look, if you're coming in, new into the industry, first of all, go wide, okay? Go as broad as you can. Don't specialize yet. Go broad, figure out where you fit into the ecosystem, and then figure out where are the areas that you want to be able to deepen your knowledge in. And when you deepen your knowledge in that area, then you still have the bigger picture, and therefore it's easier to do storytelling when you actually progress in your career. So storytelling is a very important thing.
I think Samit has more comments. I'm from a software testing and QR background. I have transferable skills for cybersecurity. Edwin, anything to add, and maybe anything particular to Samit?
Absolutely. So I think it comes back to what Chirag was saying too, right? What's your interest? And it comes down to what you were doing. So someone who does software testing, obviously you have quite a bit of attention for detail. You're looking for bugs. You're very, I guess you could be very process focused. When it comes to security testing, what we're trying to find security bugs, which are the same thing, right? They are bugs but of different nature. So that's why when we're trying to find application security engineers, some of the best application security engineers are actually software testers, because they bring those transferable skills. And then what we then, I guess, provide the education on is what are the kind of software security bugs that are common, and then you start using those skills that you already have and translate that into that particular role. So absolutely.
Yeah, and I think I also heard if you're coming from absolutely like non-technical background, the awareness, the cybersecurity awareness people who you run training for organization about cybersecurity awareness could be some backdoor as well. If you're coming from completely non-technical background.
Yeah, it comes to that, right? And my first book was actually on this. It was on on awareness. So it was 7 rules to influence behavior and win at cyber awareness. And look, it does matter where you come from, and then we talked about, I think Kevin and Edwin both mentioned that. So certain backgrounds, like I said, marketing, communications, hold you really well when it comes to awareness and training, because there's so many transferable skills. Accountants, well, you could, but you have a stronger risk background, I reckon, an audit background, which probably a GRC path might be more appropriate. So I wouldn't necessarily just confine into non-technical means awareness. I think there are skills that go with awareness. uh, but awareness programs too, it could be a starting point. But I do feel now, because I made that comment earlier, people, there is a general awareness now that is assumed, and government's also doing a lot of it. So I feel that you can come in, but it's equally important for you to not just talk about, I've always said this, don't just say don't click on that link and phishing is bad, but actually have an understanding as an awareness professional of why it is bad, because you can then start to educate people actually what happens behind the scenes when people click on links. Because if you're not informed, then you're not really adding value, and that's a challenge. So it's definitely an area where you start off, and you can educate people if that's the passion that you have. It's a very important area, always is, even with AI, automation, and everything else that we talk about these days. The human critical thinking is going to be foundational. But I've seen a lot of people be quite successful when they come with backgrounds that are actually more people centric, works with people a lot, and not just focus on tools. I think they do quite well in this space.
Perfect. I'm cautious about the time. Can we maybe quickly answer Vikram's question? Vikram is asking, do you use any kind of a project management framework in cybersecurity, for example, Agile or Scrum? Does anyone want to answer that question?
I'm happy
I
to jump.
Go for it, Kevin.
Yeah, it's cool. Like, yeah, I would go. You need to appreciate what the delivery project management methodology is for the organization. There isn't one specific one we actually use, but just be really careful. Don't do it quicker with less sort of discipline when you actually go into the agile side of the wall. But and then actually think about how you design your controls to be able to fit that methodology as well. So unfortunately, no, there isn't one specific one, but you gotta appreciate it's part of the whole way of delivering your controls.
Anything to add, Chirag or Edwin, or Kevin covered the answer, I guess?
No, I think that's right. Like it's not a it's not this one approach that is a project management approach. But hey, that's a good point though, because project management professionals also have a big role to play. A lot of organizations have gone through or are going some version of cyber maturity uplifts, which require big transformational initiatives. And I do a fair bit of work with these folks in program and project management, because they have a role to play in enabling that. And the more cyber aware they are, they could actually specialize in cyber programs and projects.
Makes sense. Nahid has a quick question, a little bit off the topic, Nahid, but I think we have a really quick answer here. Any tips for international students who can't get the national security clearance? I have seen a lot of cyber roles with this clearance. I think it's a catch-22, Nahid. Unless you are Australian citizen, there is no way to get the security clearance, and only way to get security clearance, you need to start working for government organization who provide the security clearance. So I don't think there is any sneaky way, unless I don't know something.
No, I'm going to be controversial. Don't work in Canberra.
So yeah, I don't think there is any way to get the clearance by only just waiting and applying for government jobs. Guys, so we have 10 minutes left. I guess the kind of last quick question to summarize today's discussion. How do you see, any maybe emerging roles or specialties in cybersecurity industry that getting some traction in Australia? What do you think next? So we talk about what's sort of happening now, but lost Kevin for a second. but what do you think, like, if you need to, I don't know, summarize what's next for cybersecurity in Australia, what do you think? Edwin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'll throw a new term around, and I might be making this new position up. It's security automation engineer. So I don't know, there's a thing, but there's a lot of tools right now. There's a lot of alerts coming in, and I feel like to address the growing volume of threats, you need a lot more automation of routine tasks in there. So I feel like this is something that is emerging, that we're seeing a lot more. And this person will obviously might have to be technical, probably be able to design and develop and implement those automation tools to streamline security operations and obviously add some efficiencies in there.
Perfect. Chirag, what do you think? What's the next emerging cybersecurity role?
Look, I do agree. I think the automation aspect is going to be key. Uh, Look, what is old is new again sometimes, right? And I don't think it's about the shiny new rule, but we need to recognize the fact that artificial intelligence is definitely changing the game. And I don't want to buy in the buzzword of AI, like it's not just AI for AI's sake, but yes, generative AI, made AI available to everyone, right? It consumerized it. Like people could interact with things like Chat GPT or Gemini and get to see, oh, this is actually quite useful. While as a lot of this has been happening in the background and invested in tools. So I think with AI now becoming increasingly mainstream, organizations are trying to figure out how to use AI for their benefit. Uh, Cybersecurity professionals actually need to get better about how to evaluate, assess, and secure these technologies, which is still not very clear. And we can say, well, we'll go back to the basics. Well, sometimes you can, sometimes you need to evolve because these things are working a bit differently than what you're used to. And how do you communicate with business the risks of those technologies? So, OWASP and organizations like that put good guidance out there, which will help existing security architects, security leaders to understand, but also to explain to their boards and execs. I think the future of security professionals are the ones who are effective communicators and can help sift through all this noise and make sense while still having the strong credibility that they're not just talking, at 30,000 foot level without understanding of the detail. The other trend, which is called out in the Australian cybersecurity strategy as well, is quantum computing and the evolution of quantum computing, which offers so many benefits. So I don't want to just talk about the risks of it. Lots of benefits for us as a society, but on the flip side, for security, it does risk our encryption algorithms and a lot of what we relied on to secure our key information. So I think thinking about those risks and being able to put forward practical solutions, be it assessments, proof of concepts, having that agility and growth mindset will set you apart.
Perfect. And Kevin, over to you. I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, apologies. I'm not sure what happened there.
It's all good as long as you're back. Yes. So what are your thoughts?
My thoughts is I'm going to go down the pathway of what Chirag has actually mentioned, only because I do work for an AI company and it's not Gen AI. But I will talk about that new class. By the way I put it is that I've actually now unlocked a new class or a risk class, of which I don't really have a lot of controls for. And when I say controls, I don't actually mean how do we use Gen AI. I actually mean things like how do I deal with data poisoning or transference of model bias between your models, and protection of your neural networks. These are not new terminologies. I think it makes. I think there's a misconception. It started back in the 40s and the 50s. So therefore, there is a new wave of people that we need to definitely look into in terms of how do we actually protect that. And it is a constant thing that I'm thinking about today. But absolutely, that's the case. And to Chirag's point about quantum computing, there's going to be a convergence between quantum computing and what people do in an AI perspective. With the amount of processing, I think we're already hitting a bit of a limit from a processing perspective from neural networks. The question is, when quantum computing comes in, what's next, right? It's going to be an interesting time.
I feel like it's a great topic for one of my next discussion on cybersecurity, the cybersecurities and AI and emerging trends. So I'm definitely thinking I will be scheduling something probably towards the end of May. So guys, stay tuned, something coming. And now we got to the exciting part of our live stream. We have a few minutes left, and it's the time of the giveaway. So basically, for everyone who comment and participate in the live stream, is a great opportunity to win a virtual coffee chat with our speakers. So I'm going to make the announcement for next week. And while I'm doing the announcement for next week, please scroll through the comments and you can put the name in the private chat. Try to pick different people, don't pick the same person. I'll leave it up to you to figure it out. So scroll through the comments and pick the winners for the virtual coffee chat. And while you guys doing that, I'll do the announcements for next week. And next week, actually, 27th of March, there will be no live stream. It's kind of the almost Easter weekend, so I decided to not run live stream next week. So we're jumping straight to the I'm jumping straight to 10th of April. 10th of April in a few weeks. So yes, that's happening. We're going to talk about tech layoffs, massive topic at the moment. So obviously a lot's going on, especially in the big tech companies. So we're going to talk about it with Evgeny, Peter, and Todd, and what it means for organizational structure and the roles. And then in 2 weeks, on the 3rd of April, we're going to do live tech resume reviews and feedback with Ben Wood, technical CV and resume writer. So guys, you can participate in this live. So basically, if you want your resume to be reviewed and get the free feedback, please just send those resume to me, Yana@yanamartins.com, with your consent that you're happy that your resume will be shown on the live stream. And we do live reviews on the 3rd of April. So great opportunity for you to get some free feedback. Here we go. So I think we also get some people already choose the winners. So Kevin, looks like you choose James for your giveaway. So you can talk more about the security concerns regarding AI. I'll make sure to connect you on LinkedIn. Chirag, gonna chat with Vikram. Perfect. Vikram saying thank you and reach out for more guidelines. He's starting his cybersecurity basic course. Perfect opportunity to talk about more. And Edwin, Edwin choose Summit. Perfect. Summit. So you have ask more questions, how you're moving from your QA role to cybersecurity. Thank you so much. So guys, Summit, if you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, please make sure that you connect. I know that I'm connected with Vikram and James. So if you're not connected, please send me a message so I can connect you for your virtual giveaways so that you can, keep connected, keep networking going. So, and obviously for everyone, if you enjoy our discussion, please make sure, guess what, like this video, share it with everyone who need to hear this, because as more I get likes and views, you know how it works, and it's make me want to keep going and keep bringing various experts from my network and share their knowledge. And obviously, please subscribe to my channel, follow me on LinkedIn. You know the drill. You know the drill. You know what to do. Just press those likes and subscribe buttons and have more on these interesting discussions. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much for our speakers today. Edwin, Kevin, Chirag, thank you so much for joining me today. I don't know, any last comments from you guys for everyone who listened today?
No, I just want to say thank you. It was really nice, and thanks for all the engagement. And please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to share my thoughts. And yeah, look, it's a journey. It's not one, but I'm glad that we had this conversation. It's an important topic.
Perfect. Thank you. So Kevin, anything? Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. Stay curious. That's it.
Thank you, Edwin, as well. And I'll see everyone on 3rd of April for live discussion, or next Tuesday for Reboot Your Tech Mind. So see you guys and enjoy.